Today I want to tell you a story about something that happened probably over 40 years ago. Now, I'm going to tell you why I'm telling this story. It's one of the few indications early on that I realized I had a form of intuition, that I had insight. Now, this does not have a particularly happy ending, people, so bear with me. And if you want to hear the story, understand that it's not the most pleasant. But it was something telling for me. Oh, this is Tom. This is the Infj experience. Well, listen to my story. Now, over 40 years, I'd say I was a teenager. I was in my late teens, mid to late teens, and I had a group of friends. I used to have friends that I'd hang around with at the time. And we were typical teenagers. It was nothing out of the ordinary. We'd drive around, we listened to rock and roll, and we listened to all the current bands that were on, and we just did teenage stuff. We raised Cain a little bit, got into trouble, innocent trouble, typical teenage stuff. So it was nothing out of the ordinary. Now, there was this one friend that kind of came into the group later on, that came in through another one of my friends. Let's just call him George, okay? Out of respect for his family, I can't say his real name. Now, George, he was a good kid, a little bit naive. He was a little bit younger than I was. Now, let's just say George lacked common sense. George was not a very smart kid, and it kind of showed. It was very obvious. He was also young, but he lacked something. He just lacked a certain common sense, even the other kids had. Now, so we hung around. Now, George I wasn't particularly fond of him. I wasn't crazy about him. He was okay. We'd hang around, but he was who he was. Now, at one point in the course of this event, I can't remember when or where, but I remember making a comment to my other friends. Maybe the subject of George came up. And I made a comment that I didn't think George was going to live very long. And I did say that. Now, they kind of were quiet. They looked at me like, what do you say to that? And I just kind of blurted it out. Why I said it, I don't know exactly. But something just came to me. My mind just told me he's not going to live a long time. Later on, some of my friends, we kind of got a little bit older. We drifted away. We drifted apart, went on our way. Now, I'd bump into them from time to time. I'd still see them around town. It wasn't like we were enemies. We just kind of grew up a little bit. Now, George, as I'm going to call him, he went off and did his thing. But at one time, I heard some news that George was having some health problems. He was probably not even 18 or 19 years old, and he had some defect in his heart. And his heart wasn't beating properly. It was causing issues. To make a long story short, he had to have a heart transplant. Yeah. And at that time, they were still relatively new. They were still basically a new procedure that wasn't really widely accepted at the point. So this particular event actually made front page of the local town paper. What happened later on was, I guess, after his heart transplant, I can only guess that just knowing George the way he was, I don't think he took care of himself the way he probably should have with a brand new heart transplant. Make a long story short, George passed away a few months later after this procedure. Now, I remember my words came back to me. I remember saying those words that he wasn't going to live long, and I remember mentioning it to my other friends, and they said they remembered me saying that. And it was kind of an awkward thing to admit, in a sense, that I said that years earlier, and it happened. And he really didn't live long. Now, this is what steers me into at the current time. I've realized that intuition, having introverted intuition, as I discovered what the MBTI type was and what the INFJ personality type was, okay, it dawned on me that there were certain events that went on through the course of my life that indicated to me that I had intuition. Of course, I researched a little bit of my history to understand, and that was one of the glaring ones that came up to me. And there were some other times through the course of my life, as I got older, subtle ones came in. Now, sometimes intuition isn't always making the announcement. You may just have an idea or a thought in your head. You might come to a conclusion about somebody or something within your head. You don't tell anybody, just yourself, and it comes true. But you just know that you saw this, you foresaw these things. And my point is that this is one of the indications that told me that I had intuition. So I guess the point of my story is that a lot of times we need to research our history. So just so we have a better idea who we are and what we are as INFJs. Now, also what I want to add to is that through the course of my life, as I began to develop, I noticed there were stages. I mean, this development of intuition, there were certain stages where I reached certain ages or certain eras of my life. Like, for instance, when I got beyond the age of 25 into my 30s, I almost noticed that I was able to read people. It wasn't as fine-tuned as it was when I was a teenager. I mean, it was to a point, but it got to a point where I was seeing patterns, where I was actually able to read people, tell them basically a lot about their life. I remember doing that one time to a girl I met at a dance, and she was fascinated that I knew so much about her. So I guess my point, know that intuition is something that develops in an INFJ. I think it becomes more sharpened, it becomes more fine-tuned. I don't think it stays at one level. I think as our maturity and our wisdom and our age, as it progresses in our life, I believe, we fine-tune these things. I mean, obviously, because we're becoming wiser. We're able to get a better understanding of how they work. But there is a point in your life where it started, where it first happened. And as far as I can tell, that was one of the most glaring events that I talked about, George, that happened, that I could only cite, is when that happened. But intuition is definitely something that we do possess. And at the time it happened, obviously I didn't have any idea what it was. I mean, but I still remember as a kid also saying that I knew what premonitions were. And I used to use that word quite a bit. I felt like I'd tell people I've had premonitions about certain things. I remember using that, saying like premonitions, I would think of something and it would come true. And things would happen, even just things at work. And I remember saying that I have premonitions of things. Of course, people looked at me a little bit odd, but my point is that, yeah, that's part of our history. Now, if anybody's just discovering your type as an INFJ, research your own history. Maybe your memories will start becoming clear to you. If you found out that maybe you've taken a test, maybe you've discovered the MBTI type, maybe you had no idea what it was and you've just been awakened to this type. You may see that right along in your life, you'll see your patterns. I mean, they were unknown, you were oblivious to it at the time, but you'll see patterns that you had right along in your life. And you'll just understand them, and then it'll give you a better in-depth insight into who you were, who you are. That's one of my points, is just to get a better understanding, is sometimes to look into your own history and have memories of what you were doing at the time. What exactly you were premonitioning about. So, I mean, that was the story. I just wanted to tell that. I thought it was just something that you'd like to hear, people. But after concluding this video, I like to think there's something that I could share to you, that is something beneficial to you. I can't just tell a story without any kind of, hey, this is going to help you out, okay? If you think you're an INFJ and you have intuition and you have these gifts, you're going to know it. Obviously, you're going to know it. But now that you know it, now that you are aware of who you are and aware of your gift, I recommend really just using it for the better good. Just being to the point where you're fine-tuning yourself. Always looking forward and making sure that these gifts that you have are for the betterment of the people around you. And, of course, yourself. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're meant to do. We're meant to have some kind of gift for some reason. Maybe to foresee things and warn people, whether or not they want to believe it or not. But that's kind of what we do. Yeah, that's who we are. So, well, anyway, people, I hope you enjoyed my story. And well, it really happened. That was just one of those things that happened. So, people, thank you so much for attending. I'm glad you stuck around. And if you did stick around to the end of this, thank you. And if you're new here, okay, maybe you'd like to subscribe to the channel and watch some other videos. And, of course, leave your comments and give me the thumbs up, please. And, yeah, thank you so much. And so until the next time, people, thank you again and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day.